Hey, it's James, Father's Rights and Resources, hashtag how I got custody. Let's talk about parent alienation and how there's a backlash against the phrase and how people will say, oh, it's just a scam that's used it's pseudoscience, it's just a scam to use against mothers, and it's a weapon of fathers to weaponize some fake science. I was just talking to a guy in New Zealand, and there's a lot of papers out there where there's a big backlash against it, and parent alienation is pseudoscience, it's fake, it's abusive way for abusive fathers to get custody of their kids. So let's talk about how I would defend that. So I've been a father's rights advocate since 2001 when I got full custody of my daughter, pictured up there, without a lawyer. This page is about dads representing themselves without a lawyer, lighting a fire under your attorney. If you really, really want an attorney really bad, which you don't need. I get a lot of guys in the comments say, well, I already spent $100,000. I can't afford it anymore. Dummy, this is a page about representing yourself without a lawyer. You're not paying attention. Or if you see somebody who has a username that says how I got custody and all you want to talk about is your loser story, what are you doing? Why aren't you saying, oh my God, he got custody? How did that happen? I must have done something wrong. There might be another way, but you're so traumatized by the pain that you suffered going to family court, like we all are. You just believe it's impossible, so you won't even look at answers that are right in front of your face. Anyway, I got free $50,000 worth of free videos on YouTube. I got a store where most of my packets are $45. It's hundreds of dollars worth of information that would cost you thousands of dollars for an attorney to write up a brief, a motion, defense against restraining order, different letters, all kinds of packets that I have in my store. And then you could do one-on-one consults for me, 1/10 of the cost of what Judge Anthony charges, who's a hustler and a con and the most popular pro se advocate out there. Anyway, let's get back to parent alienation. Just a little side note of my services that I'm offering and how much cheaper I am than anybody. And I'm actually real and honest, a real dad with real court battles and real victories. And I show you my winning court orders on my flow page. If you check the link in the bio of TikTok, if you check under every YouTube video or my link in my bio on Instagram, there's my flow page, which has all my links in one, including a section that shows you some of my winning orders, proving I know what I'm talking about, proving that I won in court. So as far as alienation, for those of you who don't know, parent alienation syndrome or parent alienation was created by a guy named Gardner. And he supposedly committed suicide a while back. Some people think that he was killed because he was making such headway with this stuff. You know, there's a senator in Georgia who spoke out against CPS. She was also killed. Her and her husband committed a murder-suicide, like they shot each other in the back of the head and something crazy like that. But the Gardner, I think it's Stephen Gardner. I got to double check his first name. I'm kind of spacing out right now. Got these cases on the brain that I talked about today. But the Gardner supposedly committed suicide, and he made a bunch of money off of books and stuff, and he wasn't a psychologist. So they're saying it's pseudo-psychology isn't real psychology. Even though most psychologists, 50% or 60% of psychologists have a mental disorder, and they're all full of crap. It's all their own subjective opinion anyway. They created all these mental disorders in the DSMV in order to bill insurance to make themselves more money. So psychology is just a big business. If they find out you don't have a mental disorder, then you don't need their treatment and they make less money. So if a psychologist writes a paper on how parent alienation is bullcrap, and there's a bunch of psychologists like Dr. Richard Warshak in Texas, he has a whole website devoted to alienation, and there's a bunch of people who are saying it's real. In my flow page, there's a link to New York case law that says if a parent is an alienator, they're unfit to be a custodial parent. So there's other places all around the world that acknowledge that alienation is real. But another argument to this is most states and even countries have factors for determining custody. The court has to consider the best interest. The court has to consider if there's domestic violence. The court has to consider if there's physical or psychological abuse or emotional abuse of the children. What do you think coaching children is? Or slandering the other parent? Or sabotaging the other parent? Or the parent-child relationship? Just because we're playing games with the word alienation, whether parent alienation is a real thing, are you saying that means that no parent ever talks bad about another parent, or puts the child in the middle of parental conflict, or gets the child to hate another parent? If that's the case, then we don't even have the thing called slander and gossip in the world either. This back and forth about alienation is a bunch of bullcrap, because alienation is just a word that's actually in the dictionary. Let's take a look at what the meaning of it real quick. So alienation is a withdrawing or separation of a person or a person's affections from an object or position of former attachment. Estrangement. Estrangement is a common word. And then they give an example. This is Merriam-Webster's dictionary, one of the standard dictionaries out there. Examples of alienation in a sentence. After years of alienation from her family, she became reconciled with them when her father fell ill. So this is like you just got alienated or separated. There's a sadness and certain alienation his son felt because Zachary wasn't there for him due to his exploits. So alienation is used as a regular word in the English language. Okay, so here's this Gardner guy. I guess I was wrong. I guess I listened to too many of the rumors. He was a psychiatrist. You know, that's a doctor and a psychologist. And he died in 2003, and early 2000s when alienation got some headway. So, okay, so here's the thing about parent alienation. So, Dr. Gardner committed suicide supposedly. He died at age 72, it looks like. In the early 2000s, a lot of guys used parent alienation, and a lot of dads got cussy. So the feminists got outraged, so they came with a backlash of, oh, Gardner isn't a real psychologist. He doesn't have a real... And it says that he's a psychiatrist, which means he's a medical doctor and a psychologist. But what the problem was, the fathers' rights movement groups were so freaking stupid, they tried to have parent alienation syndrome put in the DSM-V, which is the Bible or the book on all mental disorders. Parent alienation is an action that you do towards somebody. That's not a disorder. You alienate because you're mentally ill and a sociopath and a narcissist. Just like, think about it. Rape and serial killing is not a mental disorder. That's the actions taken by a sociopath or psychopath who has no empathy for another human being. The action of killing somebody is not a mental disorder. You have a mental disorder that causes you to do crazy stuff like that. You have a mental disorder that causes you to alienate. So these idiots wanted it to become a mental disorder, which is insane. Actions are not a mental disorder. They're a manifestation or the fruit of having a disorder within you. So that made fathers' rights groups look stupid. And I told you before, my friggin' gender doesn't have any common sense that God gave a monkey when it comes to this stuff, and they do stupid stuff like that. And anybody with deductive reasoning will know you can't have an action be a mental disorder. Now, in my flow page, among many of my free resources here, you can find my flow page in link in the bio or under every YouTube video. If you scroll down, look at all this free information and stuff you got, and you guys never even look at it because you don't care enough to dig deep in your case for your sake of your kids. But here I got 3 links to New York. The one in the middle, this off-color one, it links to a blog by an attorney, which is the way you guys could be finding the laws in your state to determining custody and the factors. But in here, he has a bunch of bullet points, and in one of the bullet points, he talks about alienation. And then, if you look at it, there's a bullet point over here. I'm going to click on that, and it leads to this case that says parent alienation is so inconsistent with the child's best interest that parent is likely unfit to be the custodial parent. Vargas versus Gutierrez. So you got New York's Court of Appeals acknowledging alienation as a thing. So why would New York, one of the biggest cities in the entire world, one of the most famous cities in the entire world, their state courthouse, their Court of Appeals is acknowledging that parent alienation is a problem. But let's just throw aside the whole parent alienation thing. We're just playing word games now and say, oh, that word parent alienation doesn't mean anything. Well, are you saying a parent never coaches a child, never undermines, like I said before, never slanders another parent? That's a form of emotional abuse, putting a child in the middle of parental conflict. What do you call that? Or what do you call somebody who withholds a child from another parent? If we don't call it alienation, it's still bad, because emotional abuse and psychological abuse of a child is a factor for taking custody away from one parent, or something the court has to consider. So You can make these arguments in court and not even use the word alienation, but use undermining, sabotage, and all this other stuff to show the other parent is not fit to be a custodial parent. Don't get